Looks like we have 20 people viewing on the YouTube channel.
Good.
Hello there. My name is Joel Barker. I'm the Communications Officer for the Multnomah County Democrats. And this is the third in our series of House District Forums for the May 2020 primary. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so happy to have so many people participating in this act of democracy. These forums are put on by the precinct committee persons of the districts. I am really just the technology assist for what's happening. So I don't take any time away from the candidates. I am going to pass it over to Christian Burgess and Pat Delaquille from the district in order to introduce the process and the candidates.
Thank you very much, Joel. And I want to welcome everyone to this Multnomah Democrat Candidate Forum. I'm the acting district leader for HD 50. So I have worked very hard with Christian to pull this together to give both William and Ricky an opportunity to express their views and to inform many of our residents with regards to their positions on this important election that's coming up. So first I want to introduce our two candidates. Ricky Ruiz is a 25-year Gresham resident. Ricky attended the Reynolds School District from kindergarten to high school graduation in 2012. He was able to attend Portland Community College and Warner Pacific University due to a leadership scholarship he received, and graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Social Entrepreneurship in 2016. Ricky began working with the city of Gresham in 2015 as a community service coordinator and served as a citywide and focused on public safety through Neighborhood Ready program, overseeing youth recreation programming, co-leading the Youth Advisory Council, and serving as a citywide Spanish interpreter. In 2017, Ricky got elected to the Reynolds School Board as the youngest school board member, serving half a term. Ricky then got re-elected into a full term in 2019. Welcome, Ricky. William Miller is a longtime resident of Gresham and has dedicated his career to advocating for critical issues impacting communities at the local, regional, and state levels. William has been involved in advocacy, policy, and systems change since he was 11 years old and has an extensive background in outreach, engagement, policy advocacy, and social justice. He holds a bachelor's degree in political science with a focus on law and politics from Oregon State University, and was a Ford Family Foundation scholar. Will, who is part Cherokee and Blackfeet, serves as an advocacy manager for the Native American youth and family centers, providing advocacy and policy guidance to the American Indian and Alaskan Native populations in the greater Portland metropolitan area. He has a unique responsibility of moving local and statewide policy and advocacy to ensure enrichment, growth, prosperity of the Native community and all communities. Advocacy work is not easily accomplished, and Will has worked hard to establish deep, authentic relationships with community leaders, as well as elected local leaders locally across the state. Welcome, William. So with that short introduction, I had prepared two questions for each of the candidates. They'll have 2 minutes to respond. First question is, what experience do you believe best qualifies you to be in the Oregon legislature?
Pat, I think we're going to do opening statements first.
Oh, I'm looking right at the agenda and I skipped right over it. And thank you for correcting me, Christian. Let's go to opening statements. And I guess we did do a coin toss. Do we have a preference here who wants to go first? I don't see anyone raising their hand. William, why don't you go first, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. My name is William Miller, and I'm excited for the opportunity to serve as the state representative of House District 50. Thank you, everyone who put this together, and thank you to all the viewers who are supporting this race in House District 50. So I'm running for many reasons. I'm a candidate of the people and for the people. Born and raised, I was born in Portland, raised in East County, grew up in East County schools. I've deep lived and professional experience, which sets me apart from any other candidate in this race, which is why I'm running today. I grew up in poverty. My mom lived paycheck to paycheck, striving to make ends meet, putting food on the table, oftentimes working 2 or more jobs just to get by. In 2006, I lost my father to an opioid overdose. And 1 short year later, my brother was murdered over a drug deal, left to die in a parking lot in Southwest Portland. So I have deep experience in not only growing up in poverty, but witnessing my family in be involved in drugs, crime, and gangs. My oldest brother was the 3rd case of Measure 11 in the state when it was passed by voters in the 1990s. So I have firsthand experience witnessing him struggle daily to just get by well into his early 40s. Coupled with that, I have deep professional experience. I've walked the halls of the state capitol for many years, providing advocacy, support, and guidance, sitting at the table, helping pass meaningful legislation which impacts all Oregonians. I've worked for Representative Tana Sanchez and was able to represent the Native American Youth and Family Center in the legislative long session in 2019, passing a plethora of bills which impacts our communities, not only in House District 50, but all throughout the state. So I'm running because of my deep lived experience and my deep personal and professional experience, which sets me apart, like I said. I'm excited to announce that I've been endorsed by the current state representative, Carla Peluso, as she's fully trusted me to take her seat in the state legislature, providing support and guidance to our communities who need it the most. That's why I'm running, and that's why I hope to earn your support. You're muted, Pat.
Thank you, William. We'll go to Ricky now.
Well, thank you all so much. I think am I unmuted now? I think I am. Here we go.
You're unmuted.
Well, thank you all so much for tuning in and taking some time of your evening to hear both Will and I on our candidacy. My name is Ricky Ruiz. I'm a lifelong Gresham resident, born in Portland and raised in Gresham, and specifically raised in the neighborhood of Rockwood for the last 25 years. One of the things that I'm very honored and I'm very thankful to be here is the fact that I have the privilege that I have internet, I have a computer, and I just want to emphasize the fact that a lot of my constituents in District 50 and across the state of Oregon don't have this luxury. So I hope that we can find a way to send this video or find a way to outreach to those folks that don't have internet access or computer access about our candidacy. Also, a couple of reasons why I'm running. Number one, I have been living in District 50 for 25 years, and I've never really seen someone who I can look up to and where I can say this is someone who's representing me and someone that looks just like me. The District 50 and Gresham are continuing to grow. Gresham is the 4th largest city in the state of Oregon, and I've had the privilege and the pressure and the pleasure of working in the city of Gresham for the last 5 years. And prior to that, I worked for Multnomah County for 3 years. So I have government experience. I've been elected to the Reynolds School Board in 2017 as the youngest school board member at age 22. Got reelected again in 2019 to serve my first full term. So I also have the elected experience, and ever since I can remember, my parents have always been the helping hand for those families who needed the most. And it's also we also been on the receiving end of many different challenges growing up. Both my parents immigrated from Michoacan, Mexico in the early 1980s and made Oregon their home. We struggled financially. We've been threatened with evictions growing up. Both my parents don't speak the language of English. So as soon as I started learning English at Alder Elementary through the Reynolds School District, I became their unofficial interpreter on all cases. And I can say that the lived experiences has also been leading me towards one of the reasons why I ran for school board, and also the other reason why I'm running for state representative. We almost faced evictions, like I mentioned. We've been on the receiving end of immigration threats as well. That's why I'm wearing this pin, Families Belong Together, because I truly believe that. The public education system almost failed all my friends. It almost failed me as well. Out of a soccer team of 18 players, only 4 of us were able to graduate, and 2 of us were able to go to college. So for me, it's a huge red flag. And that's why I put myself in the school board position, and now I'm running for state representative to make sure that we are addressing those issues statewide and supporting school districts across the state of Oregon with the needed resources and around our education system, and also the needed resources for healthcare and housing resources for the state of Oregon.
Thank you very much, Ricky. Now it's time for the first question. So thanks for bearing with me on that. So specifically, what experience do you believe best qualifies you to be in the Oregon legislature? Because both of you are somewhat new to state politics. Again, I think let's let Ricky go first this time.
Yeah, so I have been involved in House District 50 in East Multnomah County, doing community work for the past 10 years. I successfully have been able to address youth recreation, knowing that the city of Gresham does not have a Parks and Recreation department, being strategic and finding ways to involve the community, involve our business, nonprofit, and government sectors to bring youth recreation amenities to East County has been one of my passions. I've been working in the government sector for 8+ years and hold 3 years of elected office experience. And despite not working out of the Capitol, I've been finding myself being there and advocating for things like not cutting of the purse, which was last year, being able to walk with our teachers, our Oregon Education Association, and making sure that the Student Success Act would have passed. And also one of the things that I am very proud of as well is that with the help of a couple legislators and senators, we were able to bring close to $4 million in resources to help develop Grading Sports Park, which is in House District 50, and making sure that we have the play structures, the fields, and where our families and residents, and most importantly, our youth have a place and where they can go and play without any worry. So I bring all those experiences with me, along with lived experiences as well. Like I said, despite the fact that I don't work in Salem, I've been granted to the House District 50 since day one, and I plan to continue to do so moving forward.
Thank you very much, Ricky. William?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think many things qualify me to be the next state representative of House District 50. Like I said, I've grown up in East Portland and East County my entire life, born and raised in this area, and have grown through the education system as well. But I think I'll go back to my initial opening statement, deep lived experience. I'm able to actually connect with my constituents here in House District 50 in ways that other folks aren't able to. Based off of my lived experience, I'm able to be empathetic and understanding, and actually put myself in the shoes of those who are actually hurting in order to provide tangible change. While it was mentioned that my experience might be short, I've been advocating for over 12 years, not only locally, statewide, but at the federal level too, for these systems changes, for housing affordability, mental health and addiction services, criminal justice reform. I've been at the table helping pass meaningful legislation. I was there helping craft the legislation for House Bill 4067 for independent education programs to create an extra category of developmental delayed. I was there to provide support for the paid family medical leave, which our families really need, especially now that we're in the midst of a pandemic. I was there helping provide support and testimony for House Bill 2270, which is now going to be on the ballot in November, which is the tobacco tax. So we're thinking upstream public health approaches. And Gresham needs a champion who has that experience, who is grounded in community, who can relate to community, and is ready to hit the ground running in Salem with built relationships. And I have that experience. And that's what I think best qualifies me to be in this position.
Okay, I think we're going to shift now towards some questions that we got submitted prior to the forum. And hi, everyone. My name is Christian Burgess, and I'm soon to be an official precinct committee person here in House District 50 in Gresham, where I'm proud to call home. And I'm also the chair of the Community Action Committee of Multnomah County Democrats. And prior to the forum, we had given the opportunity for folks via East Suburban Democrats, East County Rising, Multnomah County Democrats to submit some questions for our two candidates. And so The next portion of the forum, we're going to go through these questions. William and Ricky will have about 90 seconds each to respond. And we also have a few special guests of other precinct committee persons here in HD 50. And at some point during these questions, I'll also ask them to pose a question as well. So that'll be a part of this section also. And we'll get started with a question that was submitted, which I think is a nice existential question to get us started in this portion of the forum, which is, William and Ricky, what does representation mean to you? And we'll start with William this time.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Representation to me means many things. It means having a leader who is able to relate to one another, is able to relate to the people they're serving, is uplifting the voice of community at all levels, regardless of what situations they're being put in. But beyond that, it's making the invisible visible again. The communities I live and serve, so the Native American community, the LGBTQIA+ community, have always been invisibilized, and there has not been a leader in East County that has represented the ideas and the identities I live and identify with. And so it's important to make sure that we're uplifting community who have oftentimes been invisibilized, been marginalized, disenfranchised, to ensure adequate representation, and who holds the same qualities and characteristics that we want in a person or in community or in a candidate. And that's what representation means to me, is giving voice to people who maybe have not ever had a voice before, or carrying the voice of community and making sure it's adequately represented at all levels and all tables.
Great, thank you. And now Ricky, same question.
Yeah, well, representation means for me to bring different values and ideas and with the determination of making our community a better place. It includes being inclusive, making sure that everyone is being represented and in a way that their representative is approachable and respectful to all. You know, being the voice of the voiceless for many years, I can say that our immigrant undocumented voices haven't been heard. All the diverse voices of the 70+ languages that are spoken in District 50 are not all being well represented and haven't been well represented in the past couple of years. And one of my slogans in my campaign is no decision about us without us, because I truly believe and I am committed to making sure that all our voices are in the table and in the decision-making table, and making sure that we, myself as a future state representative, is including all those voices, all those ideas, and all those values into what will perhaps be one of the toughest legislation years in 2021 and moving forward. You know, I'm invested to this community. I've proven that I'm invested to this community. Actually, a lot of folks have been phone banking and text banking are a little sad that I'm wanting to move my values and move my dedication to Salem because they wanted me to continue to stay in the District 50 community. But I feel like this is the right step for me. This is the right step for the community, and I want to make sure that, you know, representation means what you're looking at, and that's myself and representing the diverse constituents of District 50.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to another question. We're honored to have longtime community activists joining us and precinct committee persons here in HD 50, John and Shirley Vandermosten. And so we wanted to invite a few folks that will be your constituents in November to ask some questions. So I'm gonna pass it over to John and Shirley to ask a question of our candidates. And again, you'll have 90 seconds each, and this one will start with Ricky.
Hello, Ricky. This is John. As a longtime organized labor member of unions, I can tell you that we don't just represent organized labor, we represent in some fashion all labor, because the gains that we make as union people is reflected in the benefits that many non-union people receive. But my question is, in what ways will you connect with the labor community as a legislator?
Well, first of all, it's always good to see you both, John and Shirley. I'm happy to see you both virtually. And to answer your question, one of the things that we are already doing from the beginning of our campaign is getting the support of our union organizations like Oregon AFL-CIO, the Northwest Labor Council Union, AFSCME Council 75, and the list goes on. So one of the things that I want to continue to have, I want to continue to have that relationship with our union partners, knowing that the fact of the matter is that they're not only advocating for their own union workers, but they're advocating for our working class men and women, no matter their status, no matter their immigration status, no matter their age or what they look like. And that is why I'm so honored to have received all those endorsements and all that support in this primary race for House District 50. And one of the things I'm also excited to explore moving forward is providing those resources and providing the opportunities in different languages. Because I know for a fact that coming from the Mexican side, most of my constituents that are my neighbors are construction workers or roofers. And when I ask them if they're part of an organized union, the answer is no. Because they don't know those resources, they don't know that information. And I feel like we as leaders in the union world must provide those resources and make sure that our working class men and women, everybody who's working in those jobs are getting equitable pay, they're getting benefits, they're getting pensions, and making sure that they're getting what they deserve. So I'm very honored to have received all those endorsements. And making sure, and I'm committed to continue that communication with them moving forward as the next state representative.
Thanks, Ricky. William, you're up.
Yeah, thank you, John. Thank you, Shirley. It's good to see both of you. I'd say many things. Holding union and union workers at the forefront of labor agreements and things like that is going to be really important. Recently, many of you might know that my campaign just unionized with the Campaign Workers Guild, the third campaign in the entire state of Oregon to do so, which also continues to set me apart to be a champion for workers' rights, fair pay, and reimbursements. My staff are continuing to see, given the economic crisis and the pandemic, they're seeing Wi-Fi stipends, they're seeing WIN bonuses, they're seeing reimbursements, they're seeing 20% increase in their pay. That sets us apart. That just shows that I'm a continued partner, making sure our workers have the resources and tools necessary to thrive. I have a family member who's an IBEW worker. My mom's an SEIU worker in the healthcare field. I know firsthand the need and the issues our communities face in making sure that they have union backing, because in having union backing, our people in our communities are stronger. Ricky makes good points about multicultural unionizing, and I think that's important. But I think more so, we need to continue to think about how we're going to invest in community by securing good paying economic and thriving jobs, while also holding the needs of the community at the forefront of decision making. So I'm committed to this fight. I have the backing of the American Federation of Teachers of Oregon and the Teamsters Union, Joint Council Local Number 37. So I have union backing as well, and I think it's important to hold that at the forefront of our conversations.
Great. Okay, now we're going to move on to another question that was submitted prior to the forum. This person asks, we have a chance to create a better education system for all and wants to know how each of you will accomplish this. And this person had said that they believe the first step would be getting rid of testing and increasing the time spent teaching. If you want to incorporate any of those points or not, but the general question being, how will each of you as representatives for HD50 create a better education system for your constituents and for all Oregonians? And we'll start with William and then go to Ricky.
Yeah, thank you. And that's a great question. The past legislative session, I was at the table for House Bill 3427, which is now the Student Success Act, which provides $1 billion each biennia to education, not only to support our kiddos, but our teachers and our infrastructure, our educational system. We need to continue to safeguard that. The Republican walkout in the act that they displayed last session was unconscionable. I want to continue to make sure we are doing good service by not creating polarization. I have relationships with those all across the aisles, staff, bureaus, but I think it's important to make sure that we're partnering with the Department of Education and reducing this idea of one size fits all for standardized testing. I was never a good tester all through college. You could probably give me a test now and I wouldn't do good, but I could know the information. So we need to do away with that. We need to know, we know studies show that our youth, it's not one size fits all. But I think beyond that, we need to hold our district leaders accountable. In the Reynolds School District right now, I've talked to many different teachers and many different folks. And right now, facing the pandemic, teachers, our classified staff were offered $10 increase in our hazard pay, and that was taken away. These are people risking their lives every single day for the betterment of our kids, for the betterment of our community. But I think more so, the Reynolds School District also asked for feedback for the Student Success Act, and then turned around and didn't allow our principals or teachers to communicate with the district about that plan, and then went ahead and submitted it to the state without any community feedback. That loop needs to be closed. We need to hold our leaders accountable, and by doing that, we will see a better educational system through increased funding and through better leadership.
Thank you. Over to Ricky.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Will. I really appreciate that. I think the number one thing here that we need to address is making sure that we're protecting the student success money. I know there's been conversations about perhaps suspending and waiting on that once the economy is able to revamp and come back to where it was before. And I think that's the wrong answer. I think we need to protect and making sure that we continue to deliver the student success money that we've been working very hard to obtain in the past couple of years. You know, for decades, this education system has been on the receiving ends of cuts, and that's something that, you know, we cannot continue to afford moving forward. One of the things that I want to make sure, you know, if we continue with this pandemic of COVID-19, most of our students, not only in Reynolds but across the state of Oregon, are facing challenges with internet access, with computer access, and making sure that those resources are available to all of us. You know, the issues that Will just mentioned, it's not only happening in the Reynolds School District, it's happening across the state of Oregon. And I want to reassure you all that I think the fact that we're having local representation be representing the school board, you know, having that same experience moving to legislation is very important moving forward. You know, this is not only a school district problem, this is a statewide problem. Obviously, this pandemic has been affecting many of our lifestyles, many of how we are moving forward. And the education system is perhaps one of the most affected areas, along with our small business economy as well. So I would say, you know, I protested and making sure that we got the student success money, and we did it. I will make sure as a state legislator to protect those funds and make sure that we deliver it in a way that is effective and transparent to all school districts. And making sure that our students and our teachers are the ones who are receiving the resources that they need moving forward.
Okay. All right. Moving on now to another important topic among many. Another issue that's impacting us all right now is the climate crisis. And there are a number of legislative proposals that have been presented in the Oregon State Legislature regarding climate change. So as representatives for HD 50, give us some highlights of what your climate agenda would be. So we'll start with you, Ricky.
Yeah, of course. So, well, there's no question that we need to invest in renewable energy solutions. That way money can stay in Oregon and help expand our economy. You know, I align with the Multnomah County Democrats, and I believe that changing our state goals for economy-wide reduction of Oregon greenhouse gas emissions to net zero should be done by 2050. And at least there should be a 50% reduction by 2035. One of the things as well that I want to work on and making sure that we are aware and we have the education behind this is that I want to fully support policy to limit development in certain areas that are identified as high fire risk. You know, just a couple of years ago, we had the Gorge fire that big thank you to our firefighters and our first responders who were able to address that issue. But if things would have gone worse, we would have seen the devastation across the Gorge and East Multnomah County and Hood River and even Vancouver and Camas. So I think, you know, one of the most important parts into addressing this issue is to fully invest in mapping out areas of high risk fires across the state of Oregon. That way we can once we do that, we can fully educate our residents and make sure that we as a state are determined on what areas are high risk and what areas are not a high risk. And also, obviously, fighting for the Oregon Green New Deal is also part of our highlight as well, and making sure that we address climate. If we have a climate problem, and I have all these ideas how to make Oregon better, but if we don't address a climate problem, all those things cannot come through. We need a planet to live on. We need to make sure we address air and water pollution and protect our environment in the best way that we can. And we need to move forward with the Green New Deal in the state of Oregon.
Okay, thanks, Ricky. And now we're going to move on to William. Same question.
Yeah, thank you. I think much of what Ricky just addressed is addressed in the land use management bill, which is Senate Bill 100, that's already passed and implemented. But I agree. We need to look at renewable energy in ways that haven't been looked at before. With transportation specifically, emitting mass amounts of emissions, we need to continue to protect our environment. One of those ways that I advocated for the past 2 sessions, which died by the Republican walkout, as many of you might know, is the Clean Energy Jobs Bill, the cap and trade, if you will. But in that bill, I want to make sure that we're not just capping it and trading. I want to protect the economic sanctity of jobs and job security and financial stability for families to come. And beyond that, we need to implement the aspects of the Green New Deal. Issues of economic, environmental, social, and racial justice are all interlinked. And in order to achieve real climate justice, we need to center all of those things at the forefront of our climate agenda, which is why I believe that that Sunrise Movement and the Oregon League of Conservative Voters have put their trust in me to be their environmental champion in Salem once elected as the state representative, because we need bold change, and that bold change comes with bold leadership.
Hey, thanks, William. And just a side note, a tech side note, hopefully Joel's still there. Our stopwatch seems to have frozen, but rest assured, I have been keeping time. So we've got that covered.
This is my apologies. I failed to start it for Ricky. I felt it was fair to also not start it for William, but I'm pushing lots of buttons and I failed in this one thing. I'll apologize for all of it at the end.
There. Something hadn't happened. So good to know. Okay, so now we're going to move to another guest, another longtime community activist here in Oregon House District 50, Henry Exergian, who is also a precinct committee person and chair of the Multnomah County Democratic Fundraising Committee. And so Henry has joined us and also has a question for our candidates. Henry.
Am I unmuted?
Nope, you're on.
Okay, good. All right. Hi, everybody, and it's good to join you. So my question for you, and I guess I forgot who started first, but
we'll do William first this time.
William first this time. So you mentioned, and my question is going to be regarding the inevitable climate damage that we're facing right now, the climate emergency that we're facing right now. What is the best way to reconcile the differences between some of the apparent differences, because they may not, some of those are, a lot of them are stoked by fringe groups that actually have a different interest at heart. How would you work beyond things like the timber unity? How do you get past that, and how do you bring labor on board, right, to make sure that we get something like HB 2020 passed in the near future?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that question. So I operate on relation, and I don't conduct business until my relationships are established. And I think that starts first. I know we have Timber Unity up against us, but it's really important that we establish climate justice and climate change policy by way of cap and trade and many other investments. It's hard. It is hard, but we have outside forces working against us by way of lobbyists and other groups like you had mentioned. But I establish relationships first. I have relationships with folks all throughout many different sectors. And in order to bring union on board, we need to find a comprehensive solution to this ever-growing problem. No other issue is ever going to matter most if we don't have a place to call home. So climate is critical now more than ever before. Rising temperatures, water, etc. So everyone needs to get on board, put their differences aside to make sure that we have a place to call home. So we build relationships with one another on all sides of the aisle, decrease polarization, and get union on board by creating good paying economic jobs, because through climate change policy, renewable jobs will be in place, green energy jobs will be in place, and there will be a need for increased employees in these sectors. So I think that is probably the best way.
Great. Okay, Ricky.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the, well, climate, it has to be one of the number one priorities that we need to address moving forward in the legislation years and legislative sessions. There's no question that, we have a lot of multi-million-dollar corporations that are buying their way into making sure that this cap and trade bill does not pass. It happened last year. We're hoping it doesn't happen in 2021. But I couldn't agree. I think one of the things that I'm excited for is the fact that there's a lot of new voices that are being putting their name in their hat to run for office, and I think that will help restore relationships that have been damaged in the past years. So relationship building is very key. I solely believe that having a business relationship and a personal relationship is very crucial. Making sure that we deal with business when business is being dealt with, and then have no personal problems moving forward. So I'm excited to see that, both from the Democratic side and Republican side, there's going to be new faces that are going to be running for office. And from the beginning, I think we need to establish this sense of respect, the sense of communication, and making sure that we both parties know that we are in this together. We are one Oregon, we're one family, and making sure that we do what's right, what's the best for the climate moving forward, and including labor. I think once we invest in green new energy jobs, making sure that those jobs are going to our labor partners, and making sure that our labor partners as well are educating their workers and their residents on the importance of climate and what things they can be doing from home to address climate change, whether or not the cap and trade bill passes. So there's things that we as residents can do to address that matter, and there's ways that we as residents and voters can do to make sure that we pass the cap and trade bill in 2021.
Okay, all right. So you both have spoken really deeply and personally about your experiences growing up in Eastern Multnomah County as men of color. And as you've said, we're a growing region. Our Eastern Multnomah County and Gresham in particular is increasingly becoming diverse in terms of race, ethnicity, immigration status, socioeconomic status. So thinking about the needs and issues of individuals, families, and communities in Gresham from that racial and social justice equity lens, what do you feel like are some of your priorities, will be some of your priorities in addressing the issues of our diverse community? And William, we'll start with you and then go to Ricky again, and then we'll flip it up.
Yeah, great, thank you. There are many issues that I see in specifically House District 50, but in East County as a whole. And one of those things is safe and affordable housing. We need to make sure that we're addressing health disparities in policy and in implementation and rulemaking. So we need to center our Black, Indigenous, communities of color at the forefront of these policies. But I think more so, we don't just need safe and stable housing. We need a wraparound approach. In our community, we operate on the relational worldview model, and that means you're in balance spiritually, emotionally, physically, and mentally. And we can't be thriving as a community until we're uplifting and supporting all four quadrants. You might be familiar with the medicine wheel. It's the same concept. But additionally, like even more than that, we need to make sure we're providing good service to those wanting to get clean and sober. Our disparities in accessing resources is felt far and wide. The window of opportunity for someone to get sober currently is about 48 hours. And after that 48-hour window, they go back to doing what they're used to doing. And you can't currently find a bed or a facility that allows you to be admitted immediately to get sober. We need further investments in those areas, not only safeguarding the protection and resources and access to communities and historically displaced and marginalized communities, but to ensure that we're wrapping around and supporting our communities in a holistic model. I think additionally, I serve as the co-chair of the Oregon Complete Count Committee subcommittee on Indian country. And that committee is set up to ensure that there's an accurate count in the 2020 census. There's been conversation and the census has been pushed back, but if our communities aren't counted, we continue to be invisibilized time and time again. But with being counted comes increased access to funding, increased representation at the federal level, and make sure that there's funding on the ground to adequately fund the services I just mentioned. So I'm committed to these things, and I think that in those three areas will address some of these economic and socioeconomic and racial issues in our community.
Okay, and Ricky.
Yeah, as a lifelong District 50 resident, school board member, city employee, I feel like I found three main concerns that are very commonly shared by my constituents. One of them is housing affordability and stability. In District 50, there's limited new housing development that is affordable, with the exception of one that just got recently approved last year with a partnership with Hacienda CDC. That's going to come to the neighborhood of Rockwood, offering over 200 units that are affordable units. But also, I think one of the things that a lot of my constituents who are facing this challenge really seem to be in favor of continuing to invest in the voucher program that we have. So our programs like the Programa Hispano, Home Forward, Human Solutions offer these resources, and where families need additional financial help, they don't need to move to a completely new affordable unit that is across the state or across in the corner of the city. They can obtain a voucher and stay where they've been living until they get financially stable. So housing affordability stability has been number one thing. Also, public safety and emergency preparedness has been also a very typical conversation that I've been hearing, especially offering those services in different languages. As my role as the community services coordinator for the city of Gresham, all of you would be surprised that neighbors do not know each other. And it's very hard to build that community and build that communication within neighbors. So my job and as a city employee is making sure that we introduce neighbors to neighbors, making sure they know that they can rely on each other, and what different resources we have as a city and as a state to prepare our residents in regards to perhaps natural disaster that can come through emergency preparedness, and offering those resources in multiple languages. And the third thing is healthcare cost. Right now, a lot of my constituents are afraid to go to the hospital or get checked out with COVID-19 because they don't have healthcare coverage. They're more worried about what's gonna be the bill other than their health. And that's something that's a huge red flag for me. As a legislator, I will fight to make sure that all those issues are going to get addressed, and no person, no matter their socioeconomic, their immigration status, they should have the right to healthcare coverages, especially now during this pandemic, and making sure that tests and services and healthcare services are fully covered without having them to worry about how much it's going to cost them at the end. So those are the three things that I've been hearing being on the ground of District 50. And as a state representative, I hope to address those moving forward with the support of our District 50 constituents.
Okay. All right. I think, Ricky, that's a good segue into the next question that was submitted prior to the forum, which is from healthcare to childcare. This person wants to know what each of your plans are to help families access quality and affordable childcare, including subsidies and supports for special needs children, such as children with autism. And this time, Ricky, we'll start with you and then go to William.
Well, I'm fully supportive of the universal preschool for all, and I believe that all of our little kids deserve to have preschool education without having to worry about how much it's going to cost them. And that way, they're better prepared once they're moving into kindergarten and elementary school. And the SPED funding has been underfunded for years, not only in the state level, but also we've been seeing a lot of lack of resources coming from the federal level as well. And I feel like every student deserves a fair chance and equal chance to an education. no matter what school or what district they are attending. I will work with our legislators and school boards statewide to introduce bills to fund money towards these services and making sure that our children who have special needs and have autism are being given the resources, the help that they need in order to have an equitable education experience, no matter what school they attend, no matter what teacher they have, no matter what classroom they're attending, and making sure that the end goal is for all of us to graduate together. So I've been advocating for this in the school board level. I will advocate for this on the statewide level, and making sure that we include everybody on a table and address this matter sooner rather than later.
Over to William.
Yeah. So like I've said, I've continued to be at the table in this fight. You know, one of the things I want to highlight is House Bill 4067, which expands a category, a 14th category in the independent education plan, IEP or IFSP, if you're under 5 years old, which is the Independent Family Services Plan. So I was at the table with Representative John Lively, helping craft amendments, craft language to ensure that our youth and our kids growing up in this system we're able to accurately be represented and get the supports needed. So that 14th category added developmental delayed, because oftentimes, especially someone impacted with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder or autism, they get categorized in that other category. So we wanted to expand the law, and we did that. So we're doing that. We can do more. I actively advocated for, like I said, the Student Success Act, but in that there's a component of the Early Childhood Equity Fund. We need to make sure we're creating culturally specific, culturally competent material and curricula for our youth and for our kids to ensure they're getting a rich and lively experience. And that's $15 million per biennia. So I was at the table fighting hard to make sure that our kids and our youth had the resources necessary, not to just get by, but to thrive. And I will continue to do that. You know, I've been advocating at the local level, but I think we need to expand statewide for this, the concept of preschool for all. You know, I see time and time again, folks and constituents in my district not have access to the tools they need to get by, or they're choosing between a gallon of milk or this bill or childcare. I see that not only in my family, but in the communities I live and serve. And I think it's important to uplift that and provide additional funding to offset those costs to ensure our youth have the accurate educational experience for them to thrive.
Okay. So being conscious of time as well, we have a couple more questions and I'm going to combine into one. Which is, I work in crisis and disaster mental health, and that's one of the reasons if I looked really run down right now, that's why. Myself and my colleagues, we've been working hard during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a disaster and it's impacted every single person in the United States, and I would say even across the globe, almost every person has been impacted in some way. So we've certainly seen impacts here in Oregon, in Gresham. So how do you feel the COVID-19 pandemic will shape your priorities in the Oregon legislature in the short and long term? And I'm combining that with an add-on question as a part of your response, if you will, which is that inevitably, because of the expenditures that are necessary right now, we're going to have an economic shortfall in the Oregon state budget. So as a part of how you feel like the COVID-19 pandemic will shape priorities, how do you feel like what solutions are going to be necessary to address that economic shortfall in the state budget that one of you will be fighting for come November? So if you could integrate that into your answer somehow, in addition to anything else you'd like to say about how you feel like we're going to be working on the COVID-19 pandemic moving forward. And we'll start with William and go to Ricky.
Yeah, so this is going to be a critical issue once I step into the 2021 legislative session. You know, we need to think not only short term, but long term, and the effects and the impacts of COVID-19. Short term, we're looking at stable housing or lack thereof, right? Like many communities are worried about paying rent or paying their mortgage. We need to look at food insecurity. I'm on the ground working with community, providing food boxes to our communities who need it the most. I see the need and the access to accessing just the basic rights and wherewithal to survive. So we need to invest in additional programming there. I was just on a call with Governor Brown's office this morning to talk about what it looks like to reopen the state. It's going to take a lot, but I think when we're thinking ahead, Oregon ranks 49th in the nation for corporate taxes. We need to bring in more revenue by holding our corporate partners accountable. But not only that, we need to reevaluate our current tax system. Beer and wine sales haven't been raised, so sin taxes haven't been raised since the 1970s. I love my glass of microbrew. I love my red wine, but I think it's important to make sure we're drawing additional revenue to provide service to those who need it the most. And I think the last portion I want to touch on is buying down the unfunded actual liabilities for the public employee retirement system. We can do that if we reinvest the kicker. If we reinvest the kicker into PERS, we will have more money to reinvest into programming, into services that impact our communities most vulnerable. So when we're thinking short and long-term impacts, we need to hold not only programming at the center of that, who's most impacted at the center of that, but also how are we going to pay for this? This cannot continue to be put on the backs of the consumer. We need a statewide strategy to combat these issues because we are all one community.
Thank you. Ricky.
Yeah, COVID-19 has been affecting many of us, and some of us that who continue to have our jobs and continue to have the food insecurity. It's a blessing to have that, but just the fact of the matter is that not many of our residents and families have that luxury. And there's no question that the worry about housing insecurity, food insecurity, even immigration insecurity has been coming up as I talk to constituents via phone or text message or even on Facebook. One of the things that I've been hearing a lot from across the nation is that ICE is beginning to revamp their efforts to detain undocumented immigrants, knowing that they're staying at home now. So I think one of my things that I'm that's beginning to reshape the way of I want to prioritize moving on to 2021 legislation is making sure that we are protecting those residents and those families and making sure our families stay together. Regarding, there's no question, I think it's going to be a tough 2021 legislation. All legislation moving forward is going to be difficult. There's going to be difficult decisions. There's going to be difficult conversations. And as a House District 50 representative, I will remain committed with full integrity and transparency with my constituents, with my community members, whether they're voters or not, with our union partnerships, with organizational partnerships that are doing this work in the ground, that have been doing this work in the ground from the beginning. So, I think one of the things that we need to also look into and see is how we are addressing our tax system and making sure that we have a conversation and begin finding creative ways to make revenues in other different ways. So, reinvesting in the kicker, finding ways to reinvest that and making sure that that money is being put back in our state is very crucial. And there's no way that, as a legislator, I will ever support cutting further pensions and PERS for our hardworking Oregon working men and women who don't deserve to have that being cut. I reached out to my representative, my senator, urging them not to do that last time they did it. And obviously it didn't go our way. And I know many of us probably have heard similar legislators, similar candidates that promised this same thing that we're talking about right now, but my lived experience will not allow for me to do that, and making sure that we are protecting every Oregonian in the best way that we can, and looking into cutting pensions is not the answer to save money in the state of Oregon.
Thanks, Ricky. All right, so we're going to segue into closing statements now, and then if Ricky and William, we'll start with Ricky and then go to William at about 90 seconds each. And I just want to thank you on behalf of Pat, our HD50 acting district leader, John and Shirley Vandermosten, Henry Exergian, and myself. We're really excited for the primaries and then moving on to the general election. And we've just really appreciated your time here today and for sharing your thoughts and your campaign platform highlights on all these important issues. And then after you each give your closing statements, then Joel will take us out. Thank you. So we'll start with Ricky. Joel.
Trying to figure out who goes
There you go.
first.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to thank all of you for tuning in and spending the evening with us virtually. I know I'd rather be in person, but given the circumstances that we are living right now, maintaining social distancing is very important. You know, just recently we've been endorsed by the Willamette Week. I was compared to CJ McCollum, one of my favorite trailblazers. And the Gresham firefighters as well has joined the support list of endorsing our campaign as well. But I can't express enough. I think being able to elect, whether it's Will or myself, we're going to make history. You know, we are both good candidates. We both bring a lot to the table. We have a lot of similarities. There's also some differences, but regardless of how it goes, I think I'm committed to my district. I'm committed to the state. I'm committed to continue to serve our underserved populations across the state of Oregon. And we can all do this together, no matter what we believe or what values we have. You know, I think more than ever, we need to stand as one, make sure that we're doing everything that we can for Oregon, because we're one Oregon family. But if you want to learn more about our campaign, our platform, our endorsements, how to get involved, please visit our website at www.ricky4oregon.com. Our website is in 5 different languages. And if you speak a language that is not listed in the website, please let us know and we'll provide that information for you as well. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Muchas gracias a todos por sintonarse ahorita en esta junta y espero que si tienen alguna pregunta, por favor, déjenme saber. And so if you have any questions or any concerns, feel free to reach out.
You're muted, but I'm assuming I get to go.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in. You know, this campaign is really historic. If elected, I'd be the first ever Native American man elected to the Oregon legislature in over 150 years. Let that sink in just for a minute. 150 years. Like, that is actually an act of decolonization, and I'm for it. And not only just the first ever Native American man, I would be the first ever Native American gay man. And my campaign is backed by many community leaders, many community partners, but most importantly, the person who currently holds the seat, Representative Carla Peluso, who knows what it takes to be a state representative, knows how hard I have fought in Salem time and time again, but not just in Salem, at the local level within the city and the county, which sets me apart from my other opponents. I think it's important to make sure that we're centering community at the forefront of policy and decision making. If you want to find out more, you're welcome to visit www.william4oregon.com to get involved, to support the campaign. There's many ways to support the campaign. And in fact, today we launched Phone Bank and Chill with Will, which will be on the weekends. So come out and support the campaign, spread our message, and most importantly, let's get elected together.
Thank you all so much. And thank you to Pat and Christian for putting this together. This took a lot of effort on their part. The ability to see people participate in events like this it makes the effort that we go through so worthwhile. And for all the people who've watched this live, please let your friends who have not seen this live know that the link on YouTube will stay up. One of the candidates asked about getting the recording. Both of you feel free to reach out to me and I can give you the digital file if you want to distribute it in some other way. I thought that was a good question. This has been a hard time for everybody. And one of the things that's been so important and so beautiful is the forgiveness that people have for each other. And I appreciate both of you candidates' forgiveness of me as I coordinated this. We threw together the ability to create these forums very rapidly because PCPs wanted it to happen. And I want to make the PCPs and the constituents happy because the Democrats of Multnomah County's story is we empower. I want to make people aware of a couple other things that I'm pretty excited about. A lot of other Democratic volunteers have been working together very hard to put together multdemsvote.com for the 3rd election in a row. And this is your primary video voters pamphlet, which you can view videos of the candidates as well as read how they align with the values of the Multnomah County Democrats. And we just put up, because people have been calling us, texting us, and reaching out by email, we put together an FAQ for the ballot. And I recommend that everybody reach out to that, because people are having difficulty finding where the president is laid out, where the presidential forum is on the ballot. So feel free to point people there in order to see that resource and just help you make a decision and be empowered for this election. I wouldn't be a party supporter if I did not also take the time to let you know that we run on contributions. The county party is run purely on local donations, mostly by very small contributions by people like you. And this year, because of the COVID crisis, we were unable to do our typical fundraiser, which is the key source of income for the whole year, the CELSI celebration. It was going to be amazing, and we're all really heartbroken we couldn't do it. Go to multdems.org/donate to support us. You'll be seeing a lot more about that next week as we have our Beyond CELSI virtual celebration. You will be very excited to see videos of our awardees and a lot of the stories about what we are and what we do. Let's see, and I've covered everything. I did want to mention, for those who benefit from it, the YouTube video will have closed captioning for the replay automatically set up. So let people know about that as well. We have HD 46 coming up on Sunday at 7 p.m. Same channel, and I am just so filled with the experience of sharing this time with all of you. So thank you all very much, and thank you all for watching.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you.